The air in the Sotheby's auction hall wasn't just quiet, it was airless. It was the sound of 1,000 people holding their breath, a collective, silent worship of money. The atmosphere was thick with the scent of old wealth, a faint, dry smell of paper, expensive perfume, and, as I had come to learn, a deep underlying rot. I sat in the third row, my spine perfectly straight. My hands were clasped in my lap. On stage, under a soft, reverent spotlight, was Lot 12, The Lost Magdalene, a rediscovered masterpiece. It was a lie, a beautiful, brilliant, and impossibly expensive lie. And next to it, my family. My husband, Nathaniel DeVoro, the golden boy heir to the DeVoro dynasty, was on stage. Beside him, his mother, the family matriarch Genevieve DeVoro, sat like a queen on a throne, her smile a thin, satisfied crimson line. They were the perfect picture of old money benevolence. They were also the most brilliant con artists I had ever met. The DeVoro family's commitment to the arts is unparalleled, the auction house CEO was saying, fawning over them. My husband, Nathaniel, stepped to the microphone. He was impossibly handsome, his charm so potent it was practically a weapon. "Thank you, Robert. We are merely caretakers. Art belongs to the world, and we are just so thrilled to share this piece, this miracle, with you all before it finds its new home." The room burst into polite, thunderous applause. He caught my eye in the third row and gave me a brilliant, loving smile, a smile that used to make my knees weak, a smile that now made my stomach turn. I smiled back, a small, polite tilt of my lips. He thought this was his greatest triumph. He had no idea I was the one who had set the building on fire. The auctioneer finally took the stage. "And now, ladies and gentlemen, Lot 12, The Lost Magdalene. We shall open the bidding at $50 million. A paddle in the front row shot up. "50 million, another. 60, it was frantic. 75, 80. My heart wasn't hammering. It was beating a slow, cold, heavy drum against my ribs. I had to consciously stop my leg from shaking. I risked a glance at my watch. 8:14 p.m. Agent Diaz had promised me 8:15. Where was she? This was the part of the plan I couldn't control, the human element. What if she was stuck in traffic? What if Genevieve had anticipated this too? $95 million, the auctioneer cried. "Do I hear 100? A man on the phone raised his paddle. $100 million. The room gasped. Genevieve's smile widened. She had won. $100 million, the auctioneer shouted. "Going once, going twice." He raised his gavel. And then the grand oak doors of the auction hall burst open. It wasn't a subtle entrance, it was a tactical one. 6 men and 2 women, all in dark blue windbreakers with 3 bold yellow letters on the back. FBI. A collective, sibilant gasp sucked the air from the room. The auctioneer froze, his gavel in mid-air. Genevieve shot to her feet. "What is the meaning of this? Do you know who I am?" The lead agent, a woman with a sharp face and cold eyes, named Agent Diaz, walked to the front. She didn't look at the stage, she looked into the crowd. Her eyes scanned the rows and found me. I gave her a single, almost imperceptible nod. This was the signal. Agent Diaz turned to her team. "Seize the painting. It's evidence." 2 agents moved to the stage. Genevieve was sputtering. "This is an outrage. I will have your badge. That painting is a priceless artifact." "No, ma'am," Diaz said, her voice flat. "It's a counterfeit, and you're part of a criminal investigation." Diaz ignored Genevieve's screeching. Her eyes were fixed on a man in the 4th row, Mr. Kaito, the family's art dealer. He looked terrified. "Sir," Agent Diaz said, "we have a warrant for your arrest on suspicion of wire fraud and trafficking in counterfeit goods." The agents moved toward Kaito, but this wasn't the plan. Not my plan. I saw it then, the look, the one I had been waiting for, a tiny, almost invisible glance exchanged between Nathaniel and Genevieve. It wasn't panic, it was relief. This was their firewall. This was their plan B. They were going to let Kaito take the fall. They were going to get away with it. No. A year. I had worked for a solid year. I had been their puppet, their fool. I had been gaslit, humiliated, and framed. I would not be denied. I had 1 second to act. Wait. My voice, clear and cold, it cut through the entire hall. Agent Diaz stopped. She turned to me. The entire room turned to me. Genevieve's eyes narrowed into slits of pure venom. Nathaniel's smile faltered. He was seeing a wife he didn't recognize. "Ma'am," Agent Diaz said, impatient. "You have the wrong man," I said. I stood up. "Mr. Kaito is just a dealer. He was deceived, just like everyone else." "Eliza, dear," Genevieve hissed. "Sit down. You're hysterical. You don't know what you're saying. Let the nice agent do her job." "She's right, darling," Nathaniel pleaded from the stage, trying to control me. This is a shock. You're confused. This isn't you. Let's go home." "I am home," I said. I locked eyes with Agent Diaz. I could see the dawning realization on her face that she was not the one in control. I was. "The forgeries aren't old," I said, my voice rising. "They're new. They're being made in a secret studio in the DeVoro shipping yard. I know because I've been there." Nathaniel's face went from pale to ghostly. "This is absurd," Genevieve shrieked. She's unstable. She's my son's new money wife. She's the mastermind, isn't she, Genevieve?" I said. "That was your plan, to frame me, the art historian who fooled you all." Genevieve's face collapsed. I had said the quiet part out loud. "Agent Diaz," I said, "you were given evidence to arrest Mr. Kaito, but you weren't given all of it. The real evidence is on this drive." I held up a small silver flash drive. "The real forger, the artist, is on that stage." I raised my hand, my glove-clad hand. I pointed directly at my husband. "No," I said. "He's the one who painted it." The explosion, the cameras flashing, the shouts, the chaos, it was everything I had dreamed of. Nathaniel lunged at me. You bitch! I'll kill you!" He was tackled by an FBI agent before he even took 2 steps. Genevieve was screaming. "She's lying! She's a liar! She's telling the truth." A new voice came from the front row. Julian Vanderbilt stood up, the patriarch of the rival Vanderbilt family. "My name is Julian Vanderbilt. I am an art expert, and I have seen the evidence, the pigment analysis, the shipping manifests. The forger is Nathaniel DeVoro, and the dealer," he pointed at Genevieve, "is his mother." That was the final nail. Agent Diaz looked at Julian. She looked at the drive in my hand. She looked at Genevieve, who was now weeping, with the dry, heaving sobs of a monarch who had just been overthrown. She looked at Nathaniel, pinned to the floor. She finally understood. She had been a pawn, too. Her face hardened. "Arrest them," she said. "Arrest them all. Kaito, the son, and the mother. This auction is a crime scene." I watched as they put my husband in handcuffs. I watched as they put Genevieve in handcuffs. She looked at me one last time. Her eyes were burning with a pure black hatred. I didn't care. Nathaniel was still screaming, "Eliza, you'll pay for this! You'll pay! I'll destroy you!" I walked over to him. He was on his knees. I knelt down so we were eye to eye. He was pathetic. "You already tried, Nathaniel," I whispered, "and you failed." I turned, and as the cameras flashed, as the dynasty of liars and forgers crumbled behind me, I walked out of the auction house and into the clean, cold night air. I was, for the first time in 2 years, completely and totally free. To understand how I did it, to understand the poison that runs through the DeVoro dynasty, You have to go back 2 years, to the day I fell in love with a beautiful, venomous lie. 2 years earlier. Before I was a general. Before I was a liar. Before I even knew what I was capable of. I was just Eliza Vance. I wasn't old money. I wasn't new money. I was book money. My father, a brilliant surgeon, had believed in 2 things: hard work and education. My world was the 17th century. I was a specialist in Dutch masters. I was on track to be a curator. I was happy. I met him at a gallery opening in Chelsea. It was one of those awful, sterile white box galleries. I was only there because the gallery was showing a minor piece from a 17th century studio. I was staring at the piece, and I just identified a flaw in the brushwork when a voice next to me, smooth as velvet, said, "Her left hand is all wrong." I turned. He was the kind of handsome that doesn't seem real. Tall, with dark hair. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. He was smiling, not at me, but with me. Her hand?" I stammered. He said, taking a sip of his champagne. "The brushwork on the lace cuff. It's too hesitant. The artist who did the face was a master. The one who did the hand was a student. Don't you think?" My snobbery, my one true defense mechanism, kicked in. It's a common studio work technique from the period. The master would paint the face and hands, and apprentices would fill in the textiles and background. "But not the cuff," he countered, stepping closer. "The cuff, the lace. That was the hardest part. A master would never let an apprentice handle the lace. That hand is a fake. A bad restorer painted it in, probably in the 19th century. I was stunned. He was right. It was an observation so sharp, so niche. Who are you?" I asked. He turned his full attention to me. His smile was dazzling. "I'm Nathaniel." Just Nathaniel. Of course, I knew who he was. Everyone did. Nathaniel DeVoro, the golden boy heir. I should have been terrified. Instead, I was just intrigued. You're a DeVoro," I said. "And you're Eliza Vance," he replied. "I read your dissertation on pigment degradation in Vermeer. It was brilliant. You completely destroyed the Berlin School's theory. It was ruthless." He hadn't just seen me, he had read me. That night, he didn't just talk to me, he listened. He asked about my work. He argued with me about Vermeer. He wasn't the bored, vapid playboy I'd expected. He was intelligent, he was engaged, he was fascinating. I, Eliza Vance, the woman who could spot a forged canvas from 20 paces, was completely and totally disarmed. That was the first lie. The lie that he was interested in my brain, when in reality, he was only cataloging its potential as a tool or a threat. Our romance was a whirlwind. It wasn't a slow burn, it was an explosion. He wasn't a man who dated, he was a man who acquired. Our first real date, he picked me up, and we drove to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's closed, Nathaniel," I said. "Is it?" he said with that lazy smile. The great doors opened. The director of the museum was standing there, smiling, waiting for him. We had the Met to ourselves for 3 hours. We stood in the Dutch wing, just us and a sleepy security guard. We stood in front of the Vermeer. I was explaining the brushwork, and I turned, and he wasn't looking at the painting. He was looking at me. "You're the most interesting woman I've met in my life, Eliza," he said, and he kissed me. I fell. Hard. I fell for the man who saw my intelligence as an asset, not a threat. I fell for the world he represented. There were red flags. Of course there were. I saw them. I just painted over them. I saw the way he lied so easily to a maitre d' to get a table. I saw the way he charmed a police officer who pulled him over for speeding. I didn't see it as deceptive. I saw it as charming, resourceful, powerful. He was a man who got what he wanted, and he wanted me. 6 months after that gallery opening, he took me back to the Met. He got down on one knee in front of the Vermeer. "Eliza Vance," he said, "I have lived my entire life around perfect, priceless things, and I have never seen anything as real or as brilliant as you. Marry me." I of course said yes. I was in love with a beautiful lie. The wedding was a production. It was a merger. It was in vogue. It was 1,000 guests at the family's 50-acre estate in Greenwich. It was also the first time I truly understood what I had married into. I was no longer Eliza Vance. I was Mrs. DeVoro. The name wasn't just a name. It was a title, a brand, and, I would soon learn, a job. And my new boss was my mother-in-law. This is where the story, our story, truly begins. The honeymoon was over. The gaslighting was about to start. I had, with my own 2 hands, walked straight into the lion's den. And the matriarch, the queen of the pride, was waiting for me. Her name was Genevieve, and she hated me. If our romance was a whirlwind, our marriage was the sudden, jarring stop. The honeymoon was a dream, but the moment our plane touched down in New York, the dream ended. We weren't a couple anymore. We were an acquisition, and I was the one who had been acquired. Nathaniel reverted to being a son, and I was the new variable, the problem to be solved. The estate wasn't a home, it was a fortress, a sprawling 50-acre Gothic monstrosity. The main event was our welcome home dinner. It wasn't a party, it was a summons, just the 3 of us. I spent 2 hours getting ready. I chose a dress, deep emerald silk. I thought it was sophisticated. I would soon learn I was wrong. We met in the main dining hall. It was a room that could have seated 60. It was cold, a vast echoing museum of a room. Nathaniel and I were standing by the fireplace when she entered. Genevieve DeVoro didn't just walk into a room, she conquered it. She was a tall woman, sculpted rather than built. Her silver hair was pulled back into a chignon so tight it looked painful. She was wearing a simple black wool dress. Her only jewelry was a set of severe pearl earrings. She was armor. "Nathaniel," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the silence. "You're late." "Mother," Nathaniel said, his entire posture changing. He straightened up. He kissed her on the cheek. "We were just admiring the mantle." Genevieve's eyes dismissed him, and then they landed on me. It wasn't a glance. It was an appraisal. A slow, cold, head-to-toe inventory. She was a curator, and I was a piece of art she was considering and finding wanting. "Eliza," she said. "No dear, no welcome to the family, just my name like a summons." "It's so wonderful to see you, Genevieve," I said, my voice too bright, too eager. This house is just breathtaking." "Is it?" she said, her smile paper-thin. "We find it comfortable." She gestured to my dress. "That color is bold, green, an interesting choice." My face flushed. I suddenly felt like a garish neon sign. "Oh, I bought it in Paris In our family," she interrupted, gliding to the head of the table, "we find that quiet elegance is always more appropriate. But you'll learn." It wasn't a suggestion, it was a command. The dinner was a new, exquisite form of torture. It was 3 agonizing hours of microaggressions, each one a tiny, poisoned dart. Nathaniel, my defender, my partner, was silent. He just ate. He was her son again. I was alone. "So, Eliza," Genevieve said, "Nathaniel tells me you work for a living. How quaint." I gripped my wineglass. "I'm an art historian, a specialist in 17th century Dutch pigment." Yes, he told me," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "All those books. I'm sure it's very fascinating for you." She turned her gaze to Nathaniel. "Nathaniel, darling, we must discuss the plans for the new shipping terminal." She was excluding me, putting me in my place. My life's work was quaint. I refused to be dismissed. I waited, and I jumped back in, desperate to prove my worth. "Speaking of the 17th century, Genevieve, the collection here, it's legendary. The Rembrandt self-portrait?" Her eyes snapped back to me. It was the first time I'd seen a flicker of actual interest. "You know of the Rembrandt?" Of course, I said, feeling a surge of confidence. It's one of the most debated pieces. I've studied the radiographs.
I believe the theory is wrong. I think it was.
How fascinating, she cut me off. Her voice was flat. In our family, Eliza, we find that true expertise comes from owning the art, not just reading about it. And there it was, the final fatal blow. I was new money. I was not real. My expertise was worthless here. I looked to Nathaniel for help. Please, my eyes screamed, say something. Defend me. He just cleared his throat and took a sip of wine. Mother, about that shipping terminal, I think the Hong Kong deal is the key. He said nothing. He let me twist in the wind. He let her gut me. I was, officially, invisible. I don't remember the rest of the dinner. I just dissociated. I smiled. I nodded. I was the good wife. The car ride back was silent. I was shaking, the adrenaline and the humiliation warring inside me. I waited until the door was closed. She hates me, I whispered. Nathaniel sighed, unbuttoning his collar. He didn't look at me. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Eliza. My head snapped up. Dramatic? She humiliated me, Nathaniel. She called my life's work quaint. She dismissed me at every turn. Darling, that's just how she is, he said. She's old-fashioned. She's just testing you. It's what she does. I'm not your brother's wife. I'm your wife. Why didn't you say anything? He turned, and for the first time his voice was sharp. Say what, Eliza? What did you want me to do? Start a war with my mother at our welcome home dinner? Over nothing? You're being too sensitive. You're misinterpreting her. Misinterpreting. There it was. The word. The gaslight. She hates me, Nathaniel. That was not a misunderstanding. No, she doesn't hate you, Eliza. My God. He laughed, but it was an annoyed, cruel sound. She's the matriarch. She's protective. You just need to try harder. Show her you're not just some fragile academic. Show her you're a DeVoro. I'm not a DeVoro, I said, my voice small. I'm Eliza Vance. You're Eliza DeVoro now, he said, his tone softening, the manipulator returning. He came over. He put his arms around me. Look, I know she's difficult, but I love you. I know you're brilliant. Isn't that enough? Just let it go, for me. I wanted to scream, but I was so tired and I was so in love. So I did what so many women do. I buried it. I let him convince me that I was the crazy one, that I was the one who was too sensitive. Okay, I whispered. Okay, I'll try harder. That's my girl, he said, patting my head. That's my good girl. I went to sleep that night feeling isolated, feeling wrong, feeling small. But I had a new mission. I would try harder. I would prove to Genevieve that I wasn't just a quaint academic. I decided that the best way to do that was to use my expertise. I would go into their vault. I would catalog their legendary collection. I would organize it. I would find its secrets. I would show her how brilliant I truly was. It was the stupidest decision of my life. It was the decision that would unravel everything, and it was exactly what they, though I didn't know it yet, wanted me to do. My new mission became my shield. I would try harder. I threw myself into the one task that even Genevieve couldn't fault me for, cataloging the legendary DeVoro art vault. I would organize their collection. I would find its secrets. I would show them why my quaint education mattered. The vault, it wasn't a room, it was a bank. It was located in a concrete sub-basement behind a circular steel door. The air inside was cold and smelled of steel, old linseed oil, and the sterile ozone tang of the air purifiers. This was not a collection, it was an inventory. Art wasn't hung, it was stored. Rows and rows of massive rolling steel racks, like a morgue for masterpieces. This was the DeVoro way. Art wasn't for pleasure, it was an asset class. Nathaniel had given me the codes. "Knock yourself out, darling," he'd said, amused. "Just try not to find any more fakes, all right? My mother is still annoyed about that." "It was an honest mistake," I'd said. I know," he'd laughed, patting my head. That damn condescending pat. I set up my workstation in the corner. My laptop, my magnifying lamp, my white cotton gloves. I was in my element. For the next month, this vault was my sanctuary. I was methodical. I was a scientist. I found a minor Monet that was actually by his student. I found a Degas sketch with a forged signature. Small, gentlemanly mistakes. And finally, after weeks, I came to the last rack, the crown jewels rack. And there it was, lot 17B, the Rembrandt. It was a self-portrait, dark and moody. I rolled the rack out into the light. My heart was pounding. This was it, the painting that had caused my first humiliation. I looked at it, really looked at it. But something was wrong. It was the same feeling I'd had at the gallery, an uncanny valley. The brushwork on the lace collar, it was too hesitant. The shadow in the earlobe, it was too perfect. Rembrandt was a messy genius. His late period work was fast, confident. This was careful. This was the work of someone who was copying, not creating. I leaned in, my magnifying lamp clicking on. I moved the light across the canvas, inch by inch. And then, the earlobe. I stopped. I leaned in until my nose was almost touching the canvas. There, in the deepest part of the shadow, so small it was almost invisible, was a fleck of paint. A tiny chip had flaked off, revealing the layer underneath. And that layer? It was the wrong color. It wasn't the dark umber ground layer I expected. It was bright. It was clean. "No," I whispered to the hissing humidifier. "It can't be." I knew that color. It was a cold, brilliant white. It was titanium white. My heart stopped. My blood ran cold. Titanium white was not patented until 1921. This Rembrandt, which the DeVoro family insisted had been in their collection since the 1890s, was painted at the earliest in the 20th century. It was a forgery. I stumbled back, my hand flying to my mouth. Oh my God. Nathaniel's words echoed in my head. "It's just a copy, darling." Was he lying? Or was this the lie? Was this the one insured for $30 million? I had to be sure. I had to be certain. A guess was an academic theory. Proof was a bomb. My hands were shaking. I looked at the security camera in the corner. I knew its blind spots. I went to my car. I always kept my portable analysis kit in the trunk. I brought the small, locked case back into the vault, shielding it with my body. I didn't need a spectrometer. I needed a sample. With trembling hands, I put on a new pair of gloves. I took a sterile, surgical-grade scalpel. I went to the spot on the earlobe. I held my breath. I used the tip of the blade to gently lift that single, microscopic fleck of white paint. I placed it in a sterile vial. Then I took another microscopic fleck, this time from the cracked dark brown background. I put it in a second vial. I packed my kit, I locked the vault. I went back to our penthouse, my mind a screaming void. Nathaniel was working late, as usual. I went into my home office and locked the door. I took out my portable microscope. I prepared the first slide, the dark umber background. I put it under the lens. I applied a single drop of testing reagent. I watched. The pigment held. It was stable. It was correct. My hands were sweating. I prepared the second slide, the tiny, brilliant fleck of white. I put it under the lens. I put a single drop of the reagent on the sample. And the paint dissolved. It didn't just fade, it disintegrated. It melted. a reaction only possible with a modern titanium-based acrylic gesso ground. It was 100% definitive, unequivocal. The painting in that vault was a fake. I fell back in my chair. I felt sick. This wasn't an academic discovery. This was a crime, a massive multi-million-dollar fraud sitting in the basement. Who did this? Who knew? Did Nathaniel know? Was he lying to me? Or was he, like me, a victim of his family's lies? My mind raced. Genevieve, Arthur, Kaito. This wasn't a game. This was a secret that could destroy the most powerful family in the state. My first thought was for my husband. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Nathaniel. He'll be devastated. He has to know. Someone is lying to him." I had to tell him. I had to protect him. I would wait for him to come home. I would sit him down. I would show him my proof. And together, we would figure out what to do. I waited for him. I sat in the dark of our living room for hours, the lab report feeling like a lead weight in my hand. I rehearsed my speech. "Nathaniel, I found something terrible. Someone is committing a crime." I was ready to be his partner, his ally. He came home at 3 a.m. He smelled of a perfume I didn't recognize, a cloying, sugary scent. "Eliza," he said, fumbling with the light switch, "what are you doing sitting in the dark? It's creepy." "We need to talk," I said, my voice tight. He sighed, that long-suffering, annoyed sigh. "God, can it wait? I'm exhausted, Eliza. I just closed a $40 million deal." "No, it can't wait." I stood up and turned on the lamp. I held out the report. "The Rembrandt in the vault. It's a fake." He looked at the report. He looked at me, and he laughed, that same light, dismissive chuckle. "Eliza, are we back to this?" he said. "I told you, it's a copy." "It's insured for $30 million, Nathaniel," I snapped. "That is not a sentimental copy. That is fraud, and I just proved it. This is titanium white. Someone is lying to your family, or maybe you're lying to me." His face changed. The lazy charm vanished. His eyes went cold and hard. "What did you just say?" "You heard me. You told me it was a copy of the one at the Met. I called the Met today, Nathaniel. They've never had a Rembrandt on loan from the DeVoro family. Ever. So you lied. Why? Why would you lie to me?" He stared at me for a long, terrifying moment. He wasn't my husband. He was a stranger. "You've been investigating me?" he whispered. "I've been cataloging your vault, and I found a crime. I'm trying to help you." "Nathaniel!" He walked over to me. He took the report. His face softened, the old mask slipping back on. He looked heartbroken. "Oh, Eliza," he sighed, crumbling into a chair. He put his head in his hands. I didn't want you to find out this way." My anger faltered. Find out what?" This was my father's secret," he said. I lied to protect him, to protect the family name." He told me a story, a brilliant, tragic, perfectly constructed story. His father, Arthur, had a sickness, an obsession with forgery. I found out after he died," Nathaniel said, looking at me with his big, soulful eyes. "I found his ledgers. It would destroy us, Eliza. I lied to protect us, to protect you from this." He was confessing. He was vulnerable. He was trusting me. My heart ached for him. "Nathaniel, why didn't you tell me? I'm your wife. We're a team." "I was ashamed," he said, "and I was scared. I'm still trying to clean up his mess." He stood up and pulled me into a hug. "I'm so sorry, Eliza. Will you help me? Help me fix this?" I melted. All my fear, my anger, it vanished. He wasn't a liar. He was a victim, just like me. "Yes," I whispered, holding him tight. "Yes, of course I'll help you." "Okay," he said, pulling back, "but we can't tell anyone, especially not my mother. It would kill her. She worshipped him. She can never know." "I promise," I said. "It will be our secret." That was the second knife, the one that pierced me right through the heart. He had taken my discovery, my bomb, and diffused it. He had turned me from an investigator into a co-conspirator. The next morning, I was summoned to tea by Genevieve. This was unheard of. A one-on-one tea? I was nervous. I thought, he told her. He betrayed me already. I walked into the sunroom. She was there, looking fragile. "Eliza, dear," she said, her voice soft. "Please, sit." I sat. She poured the tea. Her hands, I noticed, were shaking. I owe you an apology," she said, not looking at me. I was stunned. "Genevieve? I have been unkind to you. I was intimidated." This was happening. My husband had confessed. My mother-in-law was apologizing. I was in. I was finally, truly a DeVoro. "But that's not why I asked you here," she continued. She looked up, and her eyes were filled with genuine fear. "Eliza, that Rembrandt you found, you were right. It is a fake." My heart hammered. I know. Nathaniel told me about his father." "Nathaniel?" Her face went cold. "What does he know? He knows nothing. He's a good boy, but he's a fool. He sees what he wants to see. He's protecting his father's memory." She leaned in. "Eliza, I'm the one who needs your help. My late husband, he was a monster. He was a fraud. And I think he was murdered, Eliza. I think one of his partners, one of his forgers, killed him for it." This was a different story. She slid a worn leather ledger across the table. "I found this in his secret safe. It's a list of every fake in our collection, dozens of them. He was working with a shadowy art dealer named Kaito." I stared at her. Nathaniel had told me he found the ledgers. Who was lying? He told me he found it," I whispered. "He lied," Genevieve snapped. "He found nothing. He's trying to protect me. I'm the one who's been cleaning up this mess, and I can't do it alone anymore. You're the only one who's smart enough to see it. Will you help me, Eliza? Will you help me find the truth?" I looked at her. Her eyes were pleading. She was scared. She was my ally. Nathaniel had lied, not to protect his father, but to protect her, his mother. My heart settled on a new, more logical narrative. Genevieve was the victim. Nathaniel was the protector. And I was the key. "Yes," I said, my voice firm. "I'll help you, Genevieve. We'll find out the truth. Together." And just like that, I was in. I was her confidant, her secret weapon. My real gaslighting had just begun. For the next year, Genevieve and I were a team. We were inseparable. We were secret agents in our own home. It was intoxicating. She was brilliant. We'd have charity meetings that were really strategy sessions, poring over the fake ledger. She fed me a brilliant, intricate narrative. Her late husband was the devil. He had a secret partner, the dealer Kaito. She and I were building a case against Kaito to cleanse the family name. She subtly isolated me. "Be careful around Nathaniel, dear," she'd warn. "He's sentimental. He's not strong like us. He can't know the truth." So I began to lie to my husband, for his own good. Our marriage became a polite, distant performance. My entire world became Genevieve. She praised my intelligence. She deferred to my expertise. She made me feel like I belonged. We were allies. She had me, hook, line, and sinker. I was the fool in her master's play. I was so busy helping her investigate her dead husband, I never once thought to investigate her. Until I found the clue that wasn't part of her game. It was a year into our alliance. I was in the main library looking for an old shipping manifest. I was in the wrong section. I pulled a heavy book, and a piece of paper fluttered out. It was a modern shipping manifest from last month. It was an order for art supplies, a huge commercial order, 500 liters of Belgian linen oil, 10 kilograms of lead tin yellow pigment, 5 kilograms of titanium white. The destination wasn't the house. It was a secure warehouse in the family's shipping yard, an LLC I'd never heard of. DeVoro Creative Solutions. My heart stopped. Why were they buying modern paint for a dead man's conspiracy? I didn't tell Genevieve. For the first time in a year, I had a secret from her. I waited. I waited for 2 weeks until Nathaniel was in London. I told Genevieve I was visiting my parents. Instead, I went to the shipping yard. I used my DeVoro credentials to get in. I found the warehouse. It was locked with a high-tech keypad. I tried the obvious codes. Nothing. I looked at the keypad. I thought about my mother-in-law. Arrogant. Cunning. I typed in the date of her first husband's death. Click. The lock opened. I stepped inside. It was cold, and it was a studio. A massive state-of-the-art art studio. Easels, canvases in various stages of aging, a chemistry lab. And on the main easel, under a bright clinical light, was a half-finished Vermeer. I was going to be sick. The forgeries weren't old. They weren't from Arthur. They were new. They were still happening. I had been a pawn. Genevieve wasn't my ally. She was the mastermind. The ledger she found was a fake. She had been playing me for an entire year. I stumbled back and knocked a metal canister off a shelf. It clattered to the floor. I froze. "Who's there?" a voice called out. I ducked behind a row of canvases. My heart was going to explode. Footsteps. And then Nathaniel walked into the room, my golden boy husband. He wasn't in London. He was here. He was wearing a painter's smock. He sighed, annoyed. He picked up the canister. He looked around. "Genevieve, are you in here?" He walked over to the Vermeer. He picked up a brush. He dipped it in paint, and he began to paint. He was the artist. He was the forger. My brilliant, charming, golden boy husband was the hidden genius behind it all. Genevieve was the dealer, and I was the fool. I stayed hidden for an hour, my body shaking so hard I thought I'd break. He painted, he cleaned his brushes, and he left. I waited 10 minutes, and then I ran. I ran to my car, and I had my vomiting in the bathroom moment. I broke. It was the second knife betrayal, this time for real. The double con. I had lost my husband, my ally, my entire life all over again. I sat in that car. I was a fool. I was the dumb, pretty wife they thought I was. No. The old Eliza died on that bathroom floor a year ago. The new Eliza, she was a general, and she had just been handed her war plan. I had been their ally for a year. I knew their secrets. I knew how they thought. Now, I just had to be a better one. I went back to the warehouse. I found the business office. I found the real files, and that's when I found the bomb. It was a file labeled Eliza. I opened it. It was a complete, meticulous plan to frame me. They had been building it for a year. Forged emails from me to the dealer Kaido. Bank transfers from a secret account in my name. They were using my art historian credentials as the proof that I was the mastermind. The plan was simple. They would sell the Lost Magdalene for $100 million. They would flee the country, and they would leave an anonymous tip with the FBI, pointing to me. They were going to let me rot in prison for their crimes. I didn't just break. I became cold. I took the file. I took a memory card from their security camera. I walked out. The triple agent was born. I went home and I played the part. I was the loving wife. I was Genevieve's trusted ally. And I was, in secret, a one-woman wrecking crew. My life became a high-stakes psychological chess match. I had to continue to pretend to be helping Genevieve, all while I was secretly building my real case against her. "Genevieve," I'd say over our strategy tea, "I found another shipping manifest of Arthur's. It's just as you suspected." I'd hand her a fake I'd spent all night creating. "Brilliant, Eliza," she'd say, her eyes glittering. "You see, you're a natural at this. Pursue that. See what you can find." She was sending me on another wild goose chase. What she didn't know was what I was doing with that information. She thought I was looking at Vanguard imports. I was really using my access to the family's servers to look for DeVoro creative solutions. I was downloading everything. I had to lie to my husband. "Darling," he'd say, "you seem stressed." "Just family business with your mother," I'd reply. He and Genevieve thought I was their puppet. They had no idea I was pulling their strings. But I couldn't just go to the FBI. They had the frame-up case. It was my word against theirs. I would lose. I needed an ally, a bigger shark. I needed someone who hated Genevieve as much as I did. The DeVoro family had one great historical rival, the Vanderbilts. I found Julian Vanderbilt. He was the new patriarch, and, like me, he was an art expert. I called him. "Mr. Vanderbilt, my name is Eliza DeVoro. I have something that belongs to you." We met in secret. He looked at me with pure, unadulterated contempt. "A DeVoro," he spat. "What, are you here to buy my father's last good suit?" "No," I said. I slid a single file across the table. "I'm here to give you your father's company back, or, at least, to destroy the woman who stole it." He opened the file. It was the smoking gun ledger. What is this?" he whispered. "It's Genevieve DeVoro's entire criminal enterprise," I said. "That hostile takeover, she used counterfeit art as collateral for the loans." "That monster," he whispered. She's been bragging about this lost Magdalene for months. She's selling it at the Sotheby's auction next month." "I know," I said, "and we're going to let her." "What do you want from me, Mrs. DeVoro?" "I'm not a DeVoro," I said, my voice hard. "I'm Eliza Vance, and I want two things. I want your corroboration as a rival expert. You will stand up and back my play. And I want you to be my inside man at the auction." Julian Vanderbilt looked at the file. He looked at me, and he smiled. It was a cold, sharp, beautiful smile. "She took my father's company," he said. "I'll take her dynasty. I'm in." We had our alliance. The last piece was the FBI. I had to leak it. I had to set the stage. I contacted Agent Diaz. I sent her an anonymous package. Inside, I put partial evidence. I put the evidence of the old forgeries, and I put the fake evidence Genevieve had been building against the dealer, Kaito. I was feeding them the pawn. In the note, I wrote, "I am a concerned citizen. The DeVoro family is a fraud. Their dealer Kaito is their man. They're planning to sell their biggest fake of all at the Sotheby's auction on the 10th. You need to be there." I was setting the trap. I was guaranteeing the FBI would be there. I was guaranteeing they would move to arrest Kaito. And that would be Genevieve's moment of triumph. The moment her firewall worked. The moment she thought she was safe. That's when I would strike. The plan was set. Julian Vanderbilt would be in the audience. Agent Diaz and the FBI would be at the door. And I would be in the third row in a custom gown holding the real evidence. I would be the triple agent, the grieving wife, and the executioner, all in one. I was finally ready for the auction. Which brings us back to the auction. To the Sotheby's Hall, to the gavel frozen in midair, to the collective shocked gasp as the FBI stormed the hall. Agent Diaz was walking toward the dealer, Kaito. She was following my script. She was about to arrest the pawn. I watched Genevieve. I saw it. The tiny fractional lift of her painted-on eyebrow. The almost imperceptible relaxing of her shoulders. It wasn't panic. It was relief. This was her firewall. She and her son would walk away $100 million richer. I saw Nathaniel on stage, his face a perfect mask of shocked innocence. He was already performing, the victim. Agent Diaz was about to cuff Kaito. It was my moment, the one I had bled for. "Wait!" My voice. It didn't tremble, it wasn't a shout. It was a clear, cold command. Agent Diaz stopped. She turned to me. The entire room turned to me. Genevieve's eyes narrowed into slits of pure black venom. She knew. "Eliza, dear," she hissed. "Sit down. You're hysterical. You don't know what you're saying. Let the nice agent do her job." "She's right, darling," Nathaniel pleaded from the stage. This is a shock. You're confused. This isn't you. Let's go home." "I am home," I said. I locked eyes with Agent Diaz. I could see the dawning realization on her face that she was not the one in control. I was. "You have the wrong man," I said. "What are you talking about?" Diaz said. "He's just a dealer," I said, my voice rising. "He was deceived. The real criminals are still in this room. The forgeries aren't old," I continued. "They're new. They're being made in a secret studio in the DeVoro shipping yard. I know, because I've been there." Nathaniel's face went from pale to ghostly. "This is absurd," Genevieve shrieked, finally losing her iron composure. She stood up. She's unstable. She's my son's new money wife. She's the mastermind, isn't she, Genevieve?" I said, cutting her off. "That was your plan. The Eliza file, the forged emails, the secret bank account. You were going to let me take the fall, weren't you? The art historian who fooled you all." Genevieve's face collapsed. I had said the quiet part out loud. "Agent Diaz," I said, "you were given evidence to arrest Mr. Kaito, but you weren't given all of it. The real evidence is on this drive." I held up a small silver flash drive. "The real forger, the artist, is on that stage." I raised my hand, my glove-clad hand. I pointed directly at my husband. "No," I said, "he's the one who painted it." Chaos. Nathaniel lunged at me from the stage. You bitch! I'll kill you!" He was tackled by 2 FBI agents before he even took 2 steps. He was snarling, his face purple, his tuxedo torn. Genevieve was screaming. "She's lying! She's a liar! She's telling the truth." A new voice came from the front row. Julian Vanderbilt stood up. "My name is Julian Vanderbilt. I am an art expert, and I have personally reviewed the evidence. The pigment analysis is definitive. The shipping manifests. The forger is Nathaniel DeVoro, and the dealer," he pointed, "is his mother." That was the final nail. Agent Diaz looked at Julian. She looked at the drive in my hand. She looked at Genevieve, who was now weeping. She looked at Nathaniel, pinned to the floor. She finally understood. She had been a pawn too. Her face hardened. "Arrest them," she said. "Arrest them all. Kaito, the son, and the mother. This auction is a crime scene." I watched as they put my husband in handcuffs. I watched as they put Genevieve in handcuffs. She looked at me one last time. Her eyes were burning with a pure black hatred. I didn't care. Nathaniel was still screaming. "Eliza, you'll pay for this. You'll pay. I'll destroy you." I walked over to him. He was on his knees. I knelt down so we were eye to eye. He was pathetic. "You already tried, Nathaniel," I whispered, "and you failed." I turned, and as the cameras flashed, as the dynasty of liars and forgers crumbled behind me, I walked out of the auction house and into the clean, cold night air. I was, for the first time in 2 years, completely and totally free. The trial was the spectacle of the decade. The press called it the dynasty of fakes. My testimony, backed by Julian's, and the mountain of evidence I had gathered, was unshakable. The Eliza file, which they had built to frame me, became the prosecution's roadmap to their conspiracy. Genevieve and Nathaniel did exactly what cowardly, narcissistic criminals do. They turned on each other. He accused her of being a puppet master. She accused him of being a greedy, sloppy fool. They were both right. They were both convicted. Genevieve will die in prison. Nathaniel will likely be a very old man before he ever sees the outside of a cell again. Their empire was shattered. The DeVoro name was no longer a symbol of power. It was a synonym for fraud. But my work wasn't done. I became the state's star witness. I spent the next year working with the FBI, helping them identify the other DeVoro forgeries. I was the one who held the key. I was the one who was single-handedly dismantling their 40-year legacy of lies. I wrote a book. I called it Dynasty of Fakes. It was an instant international bestseller. With the whistleblower reward and the proceeds from my book, I started the Vance Foundation, my real name, a nonprofit dedicated to using forensic art analysis to expose fraud and to fund art education for new money kids with talent but no connections, kids like me. The painful memories of the past, they're not gone. A betrayal that deep leaves a scar, but the scar doesn't hurt anymore. It's just a reminder. Julian Vanderbilt was my partner through it all. He'd lost his family's company to the DeVoros. I'd lost my family to them. We were two people who understood what it meant to fight a dynasty and win. We didn't fall in love over candlelit dinners. We fell in love over pigment analysis reports. We didn't have a whirlwind romance. We built a slow, quiet, honest alliance. We had been to war together. That was 1 year ago. Today, we're standing in our new gallery, the Vanderbilt Vance Gallery. It's not a cold, dark vault. It's a bright, open space in Soho filled with light. It's not a front. It's not a lie. It's a place for real, honest, new artists. "You're smiling," Julian says, coming up behind me, his hand resting on my waist. "I am," I say, looking at a beautiful, chaotic, vibrant new painting. "What are you thinking about?" I leaned back against him. His hand was warm. I was just thinking. The DeVoros collected perfect things, but they were all fake. I'd rather have this. I have a life that isn't perfect. It's just real. And as I looked at the new art, I finally understood the real lesson my mother-in-law had taught me, the one she never, ever intended to. You don't marry a dynasty. You build one.